So now I'm joined by Shawn DuBravac. He's the chief economist here at IPC. Nice to see you, Shawn.
Great to be here.
Okay, so as I mentioned already today to Chris, it's a period of great disruption at the moment with the new incoming administration. Tell us a little bit about what's happening with these supply chains and what your view is on it.
Yeah, there's a number of forces at play. Obviously, you're seeing a tremendous amount of investment go into manufacturing in the U.S. We're investing at twice the rate that we were pre-pandemic, and so there is a lot of investment going into U.S. manufacturing outside of all of the other forces that have been put in place since President Trump became the president. At the same time, a lot of that investment is showing up in electronics manufacturing. It's semiconductors, it's other elements of electronics, manufacturing. It's the EV ecosystem. So there's a tremendous amount of investment taking place there. Then you add on top of what was already historically high investment, changing supply chains, increasing tariffs, other dynamics like that. And I think manufacturers right now are trying to make sense of where they think everything will net out.
Land.
Yeah, where will land. Where will the tariffs be? Which countries will see higher tariffs? What products will be included? And then does that change the game plan that we put in place really in the aftermath of the pandemic as we looked to shorten our supply chains, make them more resilient by producing closer to the market? And then obviously taking advantage of other incentives that were put in place in the U.S. and elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot happening in these last few years. I mean, and companies have moved a lot of manufacturing towards the U.S. because a lot of the innovation comes from here. In fact, you're wearing some of it today in the Meta glasses that you're wearing there. But the other thing that's happened is it's becoming very expensive over here. I mean, prices have shot up through the roof. Insurances, food, lots of other commodities. But what is your view on that? Is that likely to be something that slows down people coming here to work?
Yeah, we definitely have seen high levels of inflation. It has not declined as fast as the Federal Reserve would like. It's not declined as fast as businesses would like. Headline inflation is continuing to moderate. At the same time, slowing inflation doesn't mean declining prices. We have definitely had a shift in the price level, and the prices that we pay are higher. Not only is that impact all of the goods that we buy as consumers, but it obviously impacts all of the materials and the equipment that manufacturers buy. And then it also spills through to higher labor costs. A higher cost of living has driven up labor costs. A relatively tight labor market has also contributed to tighter labor markets and higher labor costs. And as a result, we continue to see every month in our research that is a key pain point for manufacturers and a key thing that they are focused on is higher costs of labor. Right.
And the other thing that seems to be starting to percolate a bit is there's more talk of the economy slowing down a bit and maybe even heading towards the dreaded R word.
Yeah, we saw the OECD come out with revised projections for global growth, and it was slower both for this year, 2025, and also for 2026. And so you do have headwinds, not just in the U.S., but other parts of the world as well. There is definitely more talk of recession playing out here in the U.S. The probability of a recession over the next 12 months has increased. You certainly have seen confidence decline rapidly in recent months. Not just consumer sentiment, but also CEO sentiment seems to be decaying somewhat. There seems to be a little bit more apprehension among businesses when it comes to making long-term investments. Again, waiting for the dust to settle a little bit before they start to make these commitments, which sometimes have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50-year time horizons on them. And a slowdown in investment certainly can drive a recession. You are seeing the U.S. consumer become a bit more apprehensive, and so they're cutting back on their spending. In recent months, we've seen a slowdown in consumer spending, going out to restaurants a little less,
Right.
spending a little less at retail. The one area where we have seen strength is online purchases, and some of that is probably consumers pulling forward purchases, trying to get ahead of the perceived impact of tariffs. So if you think that tariffs are coming, if you think prices are going to be higher, then you're going to try to get in front of that. And I think we've seen that not just from consumers, but from
Manufacturers,
manufacturers, businesses as
yeah.
well, as much as they can. You can't pull forward all of your orders, and you don't want to be left holding a lot of inventory. But we have seen very strong import numbers in recent months, and so that it does feel like and look like businesses are pulling forward at least some of their orders.
Their orders, yeah. Now I can see obviously the issues there on the consumer front, but I mean on the electronics manufacturing front, there's a lot of technology happening in new data centers and other new technologies coming through. Is that likely to slow down that much? I mean that's surely going to drive some of the increased business in electronics manufacturing.
Yeah, and there's a lot of debate if we are over-investing in data centers as a result of all the investment we're seeing in AI. Will that slow? I don't think that it will slow in the near term. Investment in data center construction is up over 50% in the last year. It's now about 2% of non-residential construction spending, and so it has grown from a very small sliver of the economy to a very large sliver of construction,
Right.
and it looks like it still has a lot of momentum. We could see data center investment surpass even office space in the U.S., which just a few years ago we would have thought of that's just unheard of, impossible. And so you see a lot of investment going into data center. The other statistic there is that utilization rates are very, very high. So it doesn't look like there's a lot of excess capacity in data centers. It looks like it's being utilized, and so additional investment in data centers is warranted as we continue to grow everything that we're doing in the cloud, and especially as we grow AI services.
Well, one of the issues though with data centers, and it's not just common to the United States, it's also the same in Europe, is that there's not enough electricity to power them. There really is an issue there. In fact, I know there's a number of major data center projects in Virginia, for example, which is close to Washington, that are on hold because they can't get enough power.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of data centers move to rural areas because in those rural areas you often have lower cost of real estate, but you also have, more importantly, the availability of electricity in those areas. So a lot of rural electric companies and rural electric co-ops are now trying to build out their capacity and their ability to produce and deliver electricity as their footprint changes and evolves, going from serving what had historically been maybe small towns and a rural community to now having data centers in their environments. The other unique aspect about data centers is there really is no downtime. They're running at high capacity 24/7, and so the draw is very, very high.
Huge.
When you build out electricity, you're often thinking about peak demand, and so you build to peak demand, which is often in the evening as people are getting home. They're running their HVAC systems. They've got their lights on. They're cooking their meals. They're consuming other devices in their house that are drawing electricity. But with data centers, it's all the time. That peak demand is 24/7, and so it forces the electric companies to think differently about how they're building their power and delivering their power.
Right. Yeah, it's certainly going to be a challenge going forward. But there's lots happening on the electronics manufacturing front, bringing in new systems all the time. So I think there may be a recession on the horizon, but I don't think it's going to affect us too much, or I'm hoping it's not.
Well, you definitely see more and more products becoming electrified. So it's showing up in all different aspects of the economy. It isn't just in certain pieces. It isn't just electronics manufacturing, or it isn't like electronic devices. It isn't just EVs, but it's a wide swath of the economy. And so even in a slowing economy, you do see the electrification now taking a larger share of that
Of that.
economy.
Yeah, excellent. Well, it's always great to catch up with you, Shawn. I'm sure you're kept very busy these days with all the changes that are going on and the tariffs, etc. And I want to thank you for coming in and talking to us.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Thank you.
Video proudly sponsored by Kil-Young Technology. True 3D inspection for the SMT industry.